The Wanting Seed by Anthony Burgess. This is a dystopian novel set in the future. It was published in 1962. The story begins with Beatrice Joanna. She recently lost her child, Fred. Her doctor said it was one less mouth to feed. The reason he said this is because there's an overpopulation problem and he had no compassion for the living. The doctor also said for Beatrice to leave motherhood to the lower orders, like the poor people. Beatrice is married to Tristram Fox. He's a history teacher, but she's having an affair with his brother Derek. Now, Derek pretends to be a homosexual to further his government career. Tristram doesn't like his brother, and homosexuals irritate him. If you have a problem with homophobia, then you probably shouldn't read this book because there is some of that in here. People live in cramped quarters. The world is split into language groups. Ethnic divisions were no longer important in the future. During a history lecture, Tristram explains that history is cyclical. It moves in three arcs: the Pell phase, interphase, and Gus phase. The Pell phase takes its name from Pelagianism. A government functioning in the Pelagian phase commits itself to the belief that man is perfectible, that perfection can be achieved by his own efforts, and that the journey towards perfection is along a straight road. Man wants to be perfect. He wants to be good. Laws are guides that point to an emergent pattern of social perfection. The private capitalist has no place in Pelagian society because the state controls the means of production. The state is the only boss. The interphase is an intermediate phase. During this phase, the government becomes disappointed in men. Men are not as good as the government thought. Disappointment opens up a vista of chaos. There is irritability. There's panic. When reason goes, brute steps in. Beatings, secret police, torture, condemnation without trial, fingernails pulled out with pincers, the cold water treatment, the gouging of eyes, the firing squad at cold dawn. The Gus phase comes when the governors become shocked at their own excesses. They relax their sanctions, and the result is complete chaos. Disappointment can no longer shock the state into repressive action, and a kind of philosophical pessimism supervenes. The orthodox view presents man as a sinful creature from whom no good at all may be expected. A different dream outstrips the reality. It eventually appears that human social behavior is rather better than any Augustinian pessimist has a right to expect. And so a sort of optimism begins to emerge. And so Pelagianism is reinstated. We're back in the Pell phase again. The wheel has come full circle. These three cycles are important to the story. That's why they were worth mentioning. One day, a captain named Captain Loosely, a man who wants to destroy Derek Fox, Tristram's brother, he tells Tristram that his wife is having an affair with his brother. He also reveals that Derek isn't a homosexual. He also tells Tristram that Beatrice is pregnant with Derek's child. Tristram confronts his wife out in the open, out in the street actually, and during this time he is shoved into a mob of rough-looking men and is arrested by the Gray Boys. These are the homosexual police. While Tristram is spending time in prison, the world outside gets more chaotic. Here's a passage from page 103 to 104 that best explains it. Late December, a middle-aged man named Thomas Wharton, going home from work shortly after midnight, was set upon by youths. These knifed him, stripped him, spitted him, basted him, carved him, served him, openly and without shame, in one of the squares of the town. Cannibalism is normalized. Meanwhile, Beatrice went to live with her sister and gave birth to twins that she called Tristram and Derek. Soon after giving birth, the population police came and took her and her kids away. Tristram escapes from prison so he could find Beatrice. When he doesn't find her, he goes to a soup kitchen and gets tricked into enlisting in the army. When they go to war, Tristram questions the validity of it. He asks questions like, who is the enemy? Why are we fighting? Tristram wants to know what they are involved in. So Tristram's commander responds by saying, why are we fighting? We're fighting because we're soldiers. We're fighting to protect our country. Tristram learns that there is no real enemy, and the real objective of this so-called war is population control. At the front, Tristram said to the other soldiers, there's no enemy over there. The whole thing's a fake. Very shortly, the trench will blow up, and the blowing up will be done by remote control, by a bloody big spider sitting at base. Don't you see? This is the new way, the modern way of dealing with excess population. The noises are fake. The flashes are fakes. Where's our artillery behind the lines? After Tristram got a letter from Beatrice, he escapes from the army to find her. At the end of the book, I quote, a gentle hand on her arm. She turned, startled. Then, after her moment of wordless shock, she still had no words, only tears. She clung to him. Tristram spent a lot of time trying to find her. And we still don't know at the very end if it really is him. I mean, we assume that it's him. I mean, it seems like it's him. But there is a possibility that it isn't. Overall, this was a very odd book with odd characters and lots of odd situations. The author uses a lot of big words as well that would probably require the average reader to use a dictionary to decipher their meaning. There are many topics up for discussion in this book. For instance, when society collapses, the world turns into Lord of the Flies. Overpopulation. This was a theme in the 1960s, so maybe this book was offering a really terrible solution to it, like homosexuality, cannibalism, and war. Political correctness, even though it wasn't a term used then, was still a theme. Also, people are inherently evil. These people do some evil things in this book. And history is cyclical. It moves in stages. In the book, it's the Pell phase, interphase, and Gus phase. Though I'm not 100% sure, but I think the author got the title to this book from the folk song, The Wanton Seed. And I will read that to you. The Wanton Seed. As I walked out one spring morning fair, to view the fields and take the air, there I heard a pretty girl making her complain, and all she wanted was the chiefest grain, the chiefest grain, and all she wanted was the chiefest grain. I said to her, my pretty maid, come tell me what you stand in need. Oh yes, kind sir, you're the man to do the deed, for to sow my meadow with the wanton seed, for to sow my meadow with the wanton seed. Then I sowed high and I sowed low, and under the bush the seed did grow. It sprang up so accidentally without any weed, and she always remembered the wanton seed, and she always remembered the wanton seed.